On that note,
Thank you.
did you consider? Yeah, absolutely. Did you consider like almost like multiple volumes? Like you're tackling a heck of a lot of information in one book. I mean, is this on the horizon?
So, John, you're by the way, I really appreciated the quote that you put together in
Absolutely.
summary of the book. And especially given your background in the FBI, having seen a number of these breaches from angles that Moody and I haven't been as exposed to as being in the roles that we have. I think one of the things that we wanted to do is also just tell the stories. There's a lot that can be learned through stories. And one of the things, Paul, to what you were saying is we have two chapters in the book. There's one chapter in the second half of the book. The first half of the book, of course, focuses on the stories behind all the biggest breaches. But in the second part of the book, there's two chapters, one that speaks to members of the boards of directors and CEOs. And then there's a chapter right after it that speaks to CISOs, CIOs, CTOs, and basically we give them advice for how to talk to each other and how to have this discussion around cybersecurity. So we encourage the board members to focus on some of the higher level aspects. Moody did a great job in bringing this concept of care into the book. What security controls are consistent, adequate, and so on. And then in the follow-up chapter, we give advice to technologists to focus on stories and then back them up with metrics. So and we encourage both sets of readers to read both of those chapters so they know what to expect from each other when talking about cybersecurity at the board level.
And we did not, to be clear, we did not intend it to be, as we were not solving for making it a large book. I think Neil and I were shocked when the publisher was like, hey, I think it's 400 and something. I'm like, there's got to be a mistake. But ultimately, I was like, okay, I guess that was the case. But really, I think maybe one could argue you're getting two books in one. One is really providing, and I think for anyone who wants an introduction to security, for us to be able to kind of outline some of these major breaches, it's almost like a historical perspective on some of the biggest breaches that impacted, especially in the United States. So there's that kind of, it's now like a kind of like a one place to go and get that grasp, that depth of the understanding. The other part is just kind of a whole other book, really, which is really how do you protect your own organization? So one is learn about all these things, and I love the quote that, if history doesn't repeat itself, I think it was Mark Twain who said, if history doesn't repeat itself, it surely rhymes. I might be paraphrasing a little bit, but there's definitely a whole lot of rhyming that as we kind of took this broad view and looked at all these breaches, clearly there is a pattern that happens over and over again. And a part of this, kind of the biggest contribution, I would say, is, hey guys, here are the patterns that we're seeing. Here's what we learned by deciphering and breaking down all these breaches. I think you might want to read this because there may be a pattern here that could actually impact your own organization. And it's not a one size fits all. So part of it is, here are the things that are constantly rhyming. You might want to assess yourself against this and see where are the gaps in your organization and how do we use this as a way to motivate. And again, nothing else, just start the conversation. A lot of it is really around the CISO and the CIO or the CTO really becoming that storyteller, being able to advocate and share the story, not necessarily being fear-driven, but be able to share the stories of, here's what happened in these large organizations. Some spend hundreds of millions of dollars, and here's what happened. How can we protect ourselves?
When Moody and I set out to write this book, we were thinking that maybe it should be about a 300-page book. And initially, we were thinking about, okay, maybe 2/3 of the book should be about some of the biggest breaches and the stories and histories behind them. And then the remaining third should provide advice. And initially, what we wanted to do is we just wanted to help get more people into the field. So there's a chapter at the end of the book on how you can apply your skills to get into the field of cybersecurity. You don't have to be a master technical hacker to enter the field of cybersecurity. I think one of the problems is that there's so many other parts of an organization that need to move to achieve security. And that's one of the reasons we need people with more diverse skills. So the other thing that we did is Moudy was great about surveying, his audiences, and I also surveyed some of my audiences. And one thing that those audiences told us was that there is not a book that has cybersecurity lessons for everyone. Where everyone includes, people at the board level, at the CEO level, security and technology professionals. We also have advice for investors on where to pour money into cybersecurity going forward. And so when we expanded that scope to really involve everyone is when the book grew. And I think in the initial drafts, maybe it was at 330, 340 pages. And then when the publisher kind of put in the final template, we got back this proof that was 470 some odd pages. We were both surprised. But the hope is that for folks that buy the book, they are to an extent getting two books in one, as Moudy mentioned.